Welcome to fourth session of Module 4. This PPT has been used exclusively for the purpose of education by referring many sources from the videos, YouTube, notes as well as textbooks. Let us continue our discussion on annual worth method. We have another problem wherein there are two machines given, the details of cash flows, their life, everything is given here, and machine 2's details are as shown. And what is required is we need to compare them based on the annual worth method and identify which machine is better at 12% rate of interest. These are the cash flow details of machine 1. The initial purchase price is 12 lakhs, annual operating cost 38,000, annual revenue is 2 lakh 10,000 for first 6 years and then 2 lakh 25,000 till the end of its useful life. Salvage value is 3 lakh 20,000 and the useful life is 14 years. Let us see the cash flow diagram. Initial purchase price of 12 lakh that has been indicated at t is equal to 0 because it is initial purchase price. Obviously it will come at t is equal to 0. Annual operating cost means it is negative, so there is no variation right from beginning till the end. It is 38,000. The useful life which has been already given as 14 years, so the timeline extends up to 14th year, and till 14 years the 38,000 of operating cost has been indicated. And then the revenue, let us come to the revenue part. For first 6 years it is 2 lakh 10,000. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Revenue means positive, indicate positive cash flows up to 6 years, and starting from 7th year it is 2 lakh 25,000. So starting from 7th year you make it as 2 lakh 25,000 till the end of its life, means till 14th year. And what is left, the last one, the salvage value, which will obviously come at the end, that is at t is equal to 14, indicate that as 3 lakh 28,000, and since it's salvage value it is also positive money. So the cash flow diagram is ready. Now let us try to solve this problem. First, annual worth, let us convert every cash flow into its annual worth. The first flow is say the initial purchase price of 12 lakh minus, so it is P, so P has to be converted into A using the factor A by P comma 12 comma 14. Why it is 14? Because it is annual worth. Whatever I convert, I need to convert that into annual worth, equal annual worth for the entire time period. That is the meaning of that. Minus 38,000, there is no problem because it is flowing uniformly throughout its life period. Then 2 lakh 10,000. 2 lakh 10,000, it is A of course, but it's only for 6 years. So what is my intention? My intention is to convert any cash flow into a equivalent annual flow for the entire life period. In this case it is 14 years. So this is a annual worth, equivalent annual worth only for 6 years, not for 14 years. So I need to convert that A into A of 14 years, A of 6 years into A of 14 years. Okay, how do I do that? There is no factor which can convert A into A. That's highly impossible. So what I need to do, first I need to convert this uh, annual worth of 6 years into P at t is equal to 0. I will convert that into P at t is equal to 0, and then I will convert that into A of 14 years. Same thing whenever you have such single payments in between the ends, or you have uh, staggered annual worths in between the ends, the only method that we need to follow is that we need to convert that into any of the ends. Either convert that into P and then into A, or convert that into F and then into A. So in this case, first I will convert that into P because it is nearer to P. Then using the factor A by P comma 12 comma 4, I convert into 14, I convert that into annual worth for 14 years. So this is done. Next is 2,25,000. This is nearer to F. So what I do, it would be convenient for me if I convert that into F instead of convert that into P. If I want to convert this 2,25,000 this into P, what I need to do, first it is starting from T7. If at all I convert that into P, it will be at 6. Then that to T is equal to 0. I need to use 2 steps. Instead, what I can do, I can straight away convert that into F because it is its last flow is on n is equal to 14, t is equal to 14. So that is why I can directly convert that into F. So I use the factor F by A comma 12 comma 8 because there are 8 flows, count them, and then A by F comma 12 comma 14. So this 2,25,000 is also done. Last one is 3,20,000. It is already at the end, so there is no problem. I can straight away use the factor A by F comma 12 comma 14 to convert this 3,20,000 to A of 14 years. So this will convert all the cash flow into equivalent annual worth of 14 years. Now substitute the values from factor tables and get the answer. Okay. So here I have not substituted the values from the factor table just to save some time, but I have been telling you, you have to use that step, then only you will get full marks. Now let us discuss the cash flow diagram of machine 2. Its initial purchase price is 14 lakhs, operating costs are 26,000, annual revenue is 2,90,000, salvage value is 4,50,000, useful life is 70 years. Its cash flow diagram is very simple. Okay, and initial purchase price 14 lakh, and obviously initial purchase means it will come at t is equal to 0. Annual costs are 26,000. It's also flowing for 7 years, no problem. Revenue is 2,90,000. There is no variation. It's also flowing for continuously at the uniform rate till 7th year. And finally the salvage value 4,50,000, which is at the end. Let us solve this problem now. AW2 is equal to minus 14 lakhs. It is P, convert that into A using the factor A by P comma 12 comma 7. Now you may be wondering, the life of asset 1 or machine 1 was 14 years, life of asset 2 is 7 years. Why am I doing it as it is without using the repeated projects method or common multiple method? See, let us solve the problem and then compare it by following the common multiple method. Okay. Then 26,000, it is flowing continuously for all the 7 years, and 2,90,000 is also flowing for the 7 years. They are already A for 7 years. There is no need for any further conversion. You can retain them as it is. And then finally this uh, 4 lakh for 50,000, which is the salvage value at the end, that is at t is equal to 7. Convert that into a using the factor a by f comma 12 comma 7. Okay, now substitute the factors from the values from the factor tables, and you get it as 1855. And if we can see that both are positive, and AW1 is greater than AW2, and hence the machine 1 will be selected. This is annual worth, and it's also termed as equivalent annual worth. Okay, and the last line is very important, that will carry 1 mark. Please don't forget to write this line. Now I give this as an assignment to you. You need to compare this method which we have already solved with the method using the common multiple method. And the LCM between these two is 14 and 7 is 14. The first machine will be retained as it is, and the second machine has to be repeated once again. There will be 2 cycles of machine 2 and only 1 cycle of machine 1. And by the end of this solution, you will see that when you compare the answers, you will see that there will not be any difference between the answers obtained. That is because it is equivalent annual worth. The word equivalent means irrespective of the number of years, the conversion, when you convert any cash flow into A, whether it is 7 or 14, it will remain the same, because every other cash flows also get converted. So that's why the equivalent annual worth will remain the same. That is, I leave it as an assignment to you. Sometimes they may ask you to solve it using common multiple method. Then you have to use common multiple method, or else it is not mandatory to use common multiple method or repeated projects method when solving the problems of unequal lives in annual worth comparison of alternatives. Let us go to next problem. A person borrowed 1 lakh for his vehicle to be returned in 20 years at 8% compounded semi-annually with 40 equal installments. After one half the payments were made, the borrower cleared the remaining amount as a single pay at the end of 10th year. What is the total amount paid to the bank? See, these are all very common problems. Some of special cases what I have selected, which we follow during our day-to-day life. This is a common case. We borrow a vehicle, say a bike or a car. At that point of time, we may not have the sufficient amount. That's why we go for the bank loan. And bank loan will fix the term as say 20 years, 10 years, 7 years, depending on our requirement. And after one half the payments were made, or after some payments, what we feel, instead of paying it as EMI and paying the interest to bank, let me clear, okay, in one shot or in single one payment, let me clear the entire loan. It's a quite common case, and which we have followed many a times. That's why I have taken this as the example, which is very common and which could be used in even in your day-to-day life as well. Let us see the cash flow diagram first. There are only there are 20 years, but uh, The problem is that they have made compounded semi-annually. It is not annual compounding, it is semi-annual compounding. And how many installments are there? 40 installments are there. These are the some of the uh, important points that you need to remember in this problem. It's not annual compounding, it is semi-annual compounding, and the number of installments is not 20, it is 40. So that's why I indicate in the timeline 40 points or 40 nodes, unlike the earlier timelines. Okay. The initial purchase price of 1 lakh, that will be P, indicated at T is equal to 0, and then there are 40 equal installments which must be paid. And what is that amount? I don't know that. That is what is need to be calculated. And what is that is one thing required. And what else I need to find out? I need to find out a single payment at T is equal to 20. That you have to remember. At T is equal to 20, after one half the payments were made, means what? 40 equal installments are there. After 20 installments were paid, before I pay the 21st installments, that is exactly at T is equal to 20, I make the remaining EMIs or remaining installments, these installments, with single shot at T is equal to 20. And what is that amount that I need to pay, and what is required? The total amount paid to the bank. Three values must be found out here. First one, the equal installments. Second one, the single payment at the end of 20 installments, representing the remaining 20 installments. And then the total amount paid to the bank. Let us take one by one. These are all the given data. A is equal to 1 lakh, and that is P, and I am converting that into A using the factor A by P comma I comma N. Why I is 4 here, even though they have mentioned it as 8%? Because it is compounded semi-annually. Remember that it is compounded semi-annually, and hence I will become I by 4 and N will become 2N. So there are 20 years, that since N becomes 2N, N will become 40 and I will become I by 2 at 4%. Use the factor from the factor table and you will get the answer as 5050, which means for 40 the installment value that I need to pay for 40 installments is 5050 rupees every 6 months. Okay, now I pay 5050 for 10 years or 20 installments. At the end of 20 installments, I will have some money with me, and I prefer to pay the remaining amount in one single payment, in one single shot. How do I do that? What should I do? That is nothing but I am converting this A, which is flowing uniformly for from 21 to 40. How many payments have been done? 20 payments have been done. How many payments are remaining? 20 payments are remaining. How do I pay them? In one payment, when at T is equal to 20. So what is that basically I am doing? I am converting this A of 21 to 40 to P at T is equal to 20. Okay, this is what I am doing now. So let me do that. So that P is being obtained by converting A of 20 more installment, and hence N will become 20 here. Okay, N will become 20 because there are only 20 installments remaining, and I will be obviously I by 2, that is 4%, and the value, substitute the value from the factor tables, and you will get the answer as 68,629. What does that mean? If I had continued to pay it as installments, I should have paid 5050 for 20 more installments or 10 more years. Instead of that, I am paying that at a discounted rate of 68,629 rupees. I am paying it early. So what is the advantage? The interest that I had to pay, or I should have paid for 10 more years, has been completely avoided. Okay, that is the advantage of paying any amount in advance. So this is one advantage. And what is the next advantage of that, or what is the last question to be answered? The last question to be answered is, what is the total amount paid to the bank? What is the total amount paid to the bank? Total amount paid to the bank is, I have paid 20 installments at the rate of 5050. That is one thing. And then what else did I do? Instead of paying it as installments, I have paid in single shot. Okay, so that is 68,629. So total amount paid is 1,69,629. If I had continued to pay it as this one installments, I should have paid 5050 into 40. So that will amount to 2,02,000. But here what am I doing? I am paying only 1,69,629. How did this happen? This happened because the 20 installments from 21st to 40th installments, I did not pay them as installments. I paid them as a single payment at the end of 20th payment, or at the end of 10th year. So if I had continued to pay as 50/50 per 6 months, I would have paid 1,01,000 rupees. 1,01,000 rupees. But how much did I pay? A discounted amount of 68,629. Why do I call it as discounted amount? Because that much of interest is being saved. I did not pay that much of interest. So that interest is saved, and hence it is known as discounted amount. So that is the savings which I could garner just because I did not use the installment method. This is the advantage of paying the loan in advance. Please remember that. There is a misconception by many people that it's only 5050 per month. Okay, fine, let me continue to pay the installment. Why should I unnecessarily pay it to bank? One thing we need to remember, we are on interest, we are paying interest to the bank. Suppose if there is an alternate investment which gives you more than 4% return, then we can invest that there and earn extra money instead of paying in one single shot. If you do not have any other investment option, if you feel that you need to pay it here as installments, even if you have extra money, my suggestion is that better pay the loan and clear the loan. If you have any other option which can fetch you extra interest, then you can postpone the clearing of loan, or else it is better always to clear off the loan from bank. So the total savings that I could get is 32,370 rupees. So this is the total interest I would have paid in 10 years towards the bank. That I could save because I paid the entire installment, 20 installments in single payment. So this, as I have already said, if you have some other attractive investment, you can postpone the clearing of loan. If you do not have any other attractive investment, it is always better that you save the interest, because this 32,370, this can, you can again use it in some other investment as a single payment, which will give you higher interest rate. That's why it is always suggested that whether you have a better alternative or not any other better alternative, it is always better to clear off the loan and use the amount that so saved in some other investment, which can give you higher interest rate or higher rate of return. Okay, let us go to another common example which comes in our day-to-day life. A bike was purchased 5 years ago for rupees 52,000. It was expected to be run for 8 years, at the end of which the salvage value was estimated as 4,000. But now the owner wants to sell the bike. What must be the resale value to recover the invested capital? This is again a very common example. Many a times what do, we purchase a bike, wants to keep it for at least some time, but after some time, what do, okay, let me sell it off because there is a better bike or better vehicle coming in the market, maybe car or a bike or even the house, it could be anything. So this is again a common case. Now what is estimated, if I had waited till 8 years, it would have given me 4,000. If I sell it at the end of a fourth year itself, I mean to say fifth year itself, can I sell it at 4,000 itself? Wrong. I cannot sell it at 4,000. 4,000 is the amount I am expecting at the end of 8 years. I have to sell it at a higher price so that I can justify my resale at the end of 5 years. At what minimum price I should sell at the end of 5 years so that this resale, pre-resale, I can call it as pre-resale, can be justified. Let us first draw the cash flow diagram. Initial purchase price of 52,000. The timeline is 8 years and the junction time is 5th year. And if I had waited up to 8 years, I would have got 4,000 as the salvage value. But I am selling it at the end of 5th year itself. What is that resale value at the end of 5th year, so that this mode of pre-resale can be justified? And the rate of interest is 12%. First, let me convert this 52,000 and 4,000 into a, a equivalent annual cost. Okay, minus 52,000, since I am investing that, is P. Convert that into A using the factor A by P comma 12 comma 8, plus 4,000, which is F. Convert that into A using the factor A by F comma 12 comma 8. Substitute the values from the factor tables and you will get it as 10,142. What does that mean, 10,142? That is the total amount that you need to pay every year for 8 years. Okay, so each year I need to pay 10,142 rupees to justify the initial investment and other things like this. Okay, each year I am paying 10,142. Now what is the problem? The problem is I have paid 5 installments. Okay, and what is the total worth remaining in the bike? The total worth remaining in the bike is the unrecovered capital from 6th to 8th, or 6, 7, 8. These 3 installments, or these 3 A, I have not yet recovered from the bike. Right? So that is the unrecovered capital. So what should I do? I need to convert this 3 unrecovered A, that is 10,142 of 6th year 10,142 of 7th year, 10,142 of 8th year. These three things I have not yet recovered. 10,142 from 1 to 5 I have already recovered. I have used the bike. So that means that 10,142 has been recovered. I have not yet used the bike from 5th to 8th, that is 6th, 7th, 8th. These 3 years I have not yet used the bike. So that much value still remains in the bike. So if at all I want to sell the bike at the end of 5th year itself, instead of waiting up to 8th year and recovering all the money, what should I do? I should convert this 10,142 of 6th, 7th and 8th to P at t is equal to 5. That's what I have done here. I have converted that A of 3 years. See here, I have converted A of 3 years. 10,142, that is A of n is equal to 3 years to P when at t is equal to 5. So it first flow starts from 6th year, 6, 7, 8 and hence its P will be calculated at t is equal to 5. Plus this is the unrecovered capital. This is the amount which I would have definitely got 4,000 rupees. Yes or no? At the end of 8th year. So what is its discounted amount at t is equal to 5? That also I need to calculate. So that is f and convert that into p using the factor p by f comma 12 comma 3. And when you convert that using the factor values from the factor tables, I get 27,233. This is the minimum amount that I need to sell the bike at t is equal to 5 itself and justify the resale. If anything which is sold less than this, it's a loss for the owner. If it is sold more than that, then it's a profit for the owner. This is how I can justify this, and this is a quite common case in most of our life. Let us go to another common example. Two machines are available for completing a job, and machine 1 costs 40,000 initially and has a maintenance cost of 4,000, and it has been converted into cash flow diagram, and no salvage value after 6 years. Machine 2 costs 50,000 initially and a maintenance cost of 1,500 and its salvage value of 15,000 after 6 years. Okay, only both of them are having a life of 6 years. Which machine is better? Use annual worth comparison of alternatives at I is equal to 9%. A common example, not so special about this example. Minus, let us take the first case, minus 40,000, which is P, convert that into A using the factor A by P comma 9 comma 6. Okay, and then the salvage value, I mean to say the cost, the annual cost of 4,000, which is already A. So there is no need for any further conversion. It is evenly spread for all the 6 years. So use the factor values and get the answer minus 12916. Similarly, calculate AW2 initial purchase price of 50,000, which is P, convert that into A using the factor A by P comma 9 comma 6,500 is evenly spread for 6 years, retain it as it is, and the salvage value, which is F, convert that into A using the factor A by F comma 9 comma 6, that is 10,651. And we can observe that both of them are costs here. See, that particular asset which gives me lesser burden in case of both the assets being costs will be selected. In this case, machine 2 is lesser costly, and that's why I prefer machine 2. Let us take another example. what should be the minimum salvage value of machine 1 in previous problem to make its EAC equivalent to that of machine 2. That is why I took a very simple problem. See now, I could see that machine 2 was preferred over machine 1. Why? The reason could be machine 1 was costly. How to make it equivalent to that of machine 2? The cost of machine 1 must be reduced. How do I reduce that? I cannot reduce the initial cost, I cannot reduce the annual operating cost. However, the annual worth must be, or annual cost must be made lesser. How can I do that? Only other option is that I can add some salvage value to machine 1. How can I add that? So what should be the minimum salvage value of machine 1 so that it can become equivalent to that of machine 2? That is the question. So what is the condition here? You have 4,000 as the annual cost, 40,000 as the initial purchase price, and what must be the minimum salvage value so that EAC 1 is equal to EAC 2. So that is the condition to be satisfied. Apply that condition. Minus 40,000, which is P, convert that into A using the factor A by P comma 9 comma 6, 4,000, retain it as it is, and then S, which is I don't know. Salvage value I don't know, but I know that it is F. Convert that into A using the factor A by F comma 9 comma 6, and I know that this left hand side must be equal to EAC of 2, which is 10,651, which I have already obtained from the previous slide. Substitute that value here. Use the values from the factor tables, and I get S as 17,043. This must be the minimum salvage value of asset 1 or machine 1, so that its equivalent annual cost could be as same as that of machine 2. If S is more than 17,043, what does that mean? Then machine 1 would be preferred. If it is less than 17,043, machine 2 will be preferred. If it is equal to 17,043, then either machine 1 or machine 2 can be selected. Rate of return. There are different methods, as I've already said. This is the fourth method, wherein the comparison of alternatives will be done using rate of return method. There are certain terminologies associated with rate of return. First terminology is MAR, minimum acceptable rate of return. What is that minimum acceptable rate of return? This is the lowest limit of investment. See, below this particular rate of return, the organization or the individual will not see an alternative as attractive. So MRR could be different for different activities, that is for sure. But if any asset or any investment which attracts less than MARR, then I am not going to select that particular investment. That investment is not opted by me. That is the meaning of MARR, minimum acceptable rate of return. It should not be lower than the cost of the capital. That is another common assumption. And the purpose of fixing MAR within an organization is to avoid the unproductive investment. So any investment must be productive. I run a business to earn profit. If I do not earn the minimum profit, which is not lesser than the cost of capital, then why should I go for that? I have brought the investment by paying say 10%, and whatever I get should be more than this 10%. If I continue to run the business at a profit of just 5%, is it worth investing at the rate of 10%? Absolutely not. So that is the meaning of this minimum acceptable rate of return. Next terminology is internal rate of return. The IRR method is assumed to assume that all earnings are reinvested at the calculated IRR. So whatever the earnings I get, they are reinvested at IRR, internal rate of return, and it is the rate of return on the unrecovered balance of an investment where the terminal balance is zero, or in other words, the rate if employed in computing present worth of all the costs and present worth of all the returns, which will make them equal. So it is calculated like this. IRR is that particular rate of return where present worth of receipts is equal to present worth of disbursements, and at this particular rate of interest I am going to reinvest my earnings so that I can earn a better rate of interest. Okay, so this is the condition for internal rate of return. The last terminology is external rate of return. What is this external rate of return? It avoids the problem of multiple rate of returns, because whether it is MERR or IRR, wherein should be which should be used, and all those things. When I talk of ERR, receipts that I earn are normally reinvested at least at MERR, okay, not less than MERR. It can be calculated as follows. Say future worth of receipts compound at I% must be equal to future worth of disbursements compounded at E%. I% indicates it is MERR and E% indicates it is ERR. Okay, and future worth invested at or the receipts obtained at MERR must be equal to disbursements or the cost of capital at ERR. And if ERR is greater than MERR, then the alternative is, well, there are certain IRR misconceptions. The first one is, it is extremely important to remember that the calculation of an accurate rate of return requires taking the time and size of individual cash flow into account. And there are certain misconceptions, as I said, while calculating the internal rate of return. IRR can be calculated as end value minus beginning value divided by the beginning value. This is true if and only if there are absolutely no cash flow transaction between the beginning and the end date specified. Say for example, you invest it on January 31st. One investment is made on January 31st, and there are no further investments till December 31st, and the second investment is on December 31st. There is no investment between Jan 31st till December 31st. Then yes, this formula can be adopted. The second misconception is a group rate of return should lie between the rates of returns earned on the individual assets comprising the group. This is not necessary. Why this is not necessary? Because when I apply group rate of return, there is no rule that it should be between the rates of returns of the individual assets. Say for example, one of the assets is having 12% and another assets is having 6% rates of return. There is no rule that group rate of return should be between 12 and 6. Group rate of return should be more than 12 as well. So that is the another misconception. The third misconception is there is a substantial period of time when the investment in the asset is zero or nearly so. The time period should be ignored during the IRR calculation. Is that true? Let's take an example. Suppose 1 lakh rupees invested uh, from January 1st to 31st, and there is another investment on December 1st of the same year, and it's reinvested in the same asset, and 31st the investment is again worth 1 lakh 1000 rupees. Okay, what is the interest rate obtained? So since if I calculate it as say uh, end value minus beginning value divided by the end beginning value, I get it as 1%. Is it just 1% for the entire year? If I calculate the effective interest rate, 1 plus using the formula 1 divided by r by m whole raised to m minus 1, then how much do I get? I get 12.68%. That is another misconception. Don't be under the impression that if I do not invest, the investment already invested will not earn any interest. That is wrong. That will continue to earn interest. It's not just 1%, it's actually 12.68%. It's not 1% compounded monthly or 12% nominal interest, nominal rate of interest. It is 12.68% because it is compounded monthly and the effective interest rate is more than the nominal interest rate, and I'm being charged interest on my marginal account. It's costing me money. So IRR should be negative. It's wrong actually. See, for example, if I take the example of a credit card, and if I have a debit balance, means if I need to clear the loan, they charge us interest, and it is positive interest. So how can IRR can be negative? That is wrong. And the last misconception is when margin account is included with the rest of the client's asset, the IRR should decrease. So this is also not true if the overall rate of return is greater than the cost of the borrowed funds, then it is wrong. If it is, it can be true if and only if the rate of return is less than the cost of capital. So these are some of the misconceptions under IRR. So let us go to next problem. One of the problem that is based on this IRR. A land can be purchased for rupees 80,000, estimated to be 1,50,000 after 5 years. During this period, it can be rented at rupees 1,500 per year. Annual maintenance and taxes are expected to be constant, 850 per year. What rate of return does this purchase yield? Let us compare how much per, what is the rate of return. This is the cash flow diagram, a timeline of 1 2 3 4 5 6 okay, 5 years. After 5 years, right, and initial purchase price is 80,000, and after 5 years it is expected to yield 1,50,000. And what is the rate of return? A1 is given as 850 and A2 is given as 1,500, right? And I can solve it directly. We have already solved this problem using IRR method. How do I solve? This is what I have explained here. Okay. Uh, First I will calculate this one 80,000, which is P. I will retain it as P. I will convert every cash flow into PW. See here, when while calculating IRR, either you can convert everything into PW or FW, but normally we you follow the discounted pricing because which is more relevant. See, present worth is always more relevant and much nearer to the truth because it is the present value. Future I have not seen, and moreover, the assumption is that inflation rate cannot be considered. When inflation rate cannot be considered, what will happen to my earning power of the money after 10 years, after 20 years? It is very hard to predict. That's why it is always preferred to have a present worth of cash flow. Okay, that's why I convert everything into present worth, and using the factor p by a comma I comma 5, and let me blindly I calculate I at 14%. I end up with a positive answer 137. I should get this as a 0. It's not equal to 0, greater than 0. Okay, I will go it further. At I is equal to 15%, I end up it as negative. So which means I lies between 14 and 15. This is what I need to follow. First I will calculate at one rate, check whether it is equal to 0 or not. If it is not equal to 0, I calculate the same thing at some other rate of interest. I check it. If it continues to be positive, I still increase it till I get a negative answer. If I get a negative answer, I stop the calculation and compare between the immediately previous positive answer and the negative answer. The I obtained at the immediately previous positive answer and the negative answer. By interpolating, I can get the I as 14.042%. I can very easily see that uh, it is just 137 here and minus 3244 here. So obviously it should be very much nearer to 14%, and it's just about 14.5%. This is the method I follow using IRR. I can use the same method even if I have two assets. Okay, and I calculate the asset. I calculate the IRR for one asset, and I calculate using the same method. I calculate the IRR for the second asset using the follow same method, and I see which asset is giving me higher rate of interest. That asset can be considered for selection. This is the normal method I use for IRR, and I have not solved much problems because we have already solved many problems, and getting the IRR value, it's quite simple, and you too have solved many problems under that. Let us go to the last problem of this module. This is a very special case wherein interest rate is varying between two period of time, and we had actually calculated one problem for present worth. Now in this problem we will solve the cases for present worth, future worth, as well as annual worth. Let us convert this table into a cash flow diagram. Okay, as we have receipts at the end of first, third, and fifth year, and payments at the end of at 0th, second, and fourth year. The rate of interest between 0 to 2 is 7, from 1 to 2 to 3 is 9, 3 to 4 is 10, 4 to 5 is 8. Let us convert that into cash flow diagram. Okay, first let us indicate the payments negative at 0, 2, and 4, and the receipts at the end of first, third, and fifth, and the rate of interests are varying. Now when I calculate the net present worth, let me take up one by one very carefully. See, now first what is there? Minus 10,000. What is this? This is already P. So there is no need for any further conversion because I am converting everything into net present worth. Okay. So 10,000 will remain as it is. It is already P. This is done. Next, let me come to the second payment, 10,000, which is at a distance of 1 to 2 years, and hence I convert that using the factor P by F comma 7 comma 2, and I have to ensure here that whether till second year the rate of interest is uniform or not. Yes, I can see that up to second year the rate of interest is 7%. So I can directly use P by F comma 7 comma 2. When I come to third 10,000, let's put a tick mark to second 10,000, that is done. Let's say when I come to the third 10,000, which is at the end of fourth year, the problem is that I cannot use the factor P by F comma 7 comma 3 or 9 comma 3 straight away, because the interest rate is varying here. How is it varying? See, between 3 and 4 it is 10%, 2 and 3 it is 9%, 0 and 2 it is 7%. 3 interest rates have to be considered. So what do? First I convert this 10,000, which is at the end of a fourth year, to t is equal to 3 using the factor P by F comma 10 comma 1, because between 3 and 4 it is 10%. That I will convert that into again P at t is equal to 2 using the factor P by F comma 9 comma 1, because between 2 and 3 it is 9%. From t is equal to 2 to t is equal to 2 I can convert directly, because interest rate is common at 7% using the factor P by F comma 7 comma 2. Same methodology is adopted even for receipts also. 3,000 P by F comma 7 comma 1, because 0 to 1 it is 7%. There is no problem here. When I come to 6,000, which is at the end of third year, between 2 and 3 it is 9. So for 1 year I use 9% rate of interest. For 2 years I use 7% rate of interest. And then the last one, which is at the end of fifth year. See, between 4 and 5 it is 8, 3 and 4 10, 2 and 3 9, 0 and 2 7. All the 4 factors will come into picture here. All the 4 rate of returns will come into picture here. If you use P by F comma 8 comma 5 straight away, now the question is it common 8% for all the 5 years? No. Then how can we use P by F comma 8 comma 5? I can use only P by F comma 8 comma 1, because 8% is only for 1 year between 4 and 5. That's why I use the factor P by F comma 8 comma 1. Now the discounted amount is at the end of t is equal to 4. Now I have to convert that into t is equal to 0. Is the uniform? Is the rate of return uniform? No. Between 3 and 4 it is 10. So for 1 year I use 10% rate of interest and use the factor P by F comma 10 comma 1. Between 3 to 0, is it uniform? No. 2 to 3 it is 9. So again for 1 year I use the factor P by F comma 9 comma 1, because the rate of interest is 9. Now I am at t is equal to 2. First from 5 I jumped to 4, then to 3, then to 2. Now I am at 2. From 0 to 2, is it uniform? Yes, it is uniform. Now I can use the factor P by F comma 7 comma 2 straight away. So this is how I convert this one by one, stage by stage, apply the values. I get NPW as 41,048. And when I want to calculate the future worth, I have already got the present worth. There is no point in again converting the each cash flow into its future worth. I can straight away convert this present worth into future worth. Where am I now? Present worth means I am at t is equal to 0. I am at t is equal to 0 here. Okay, first I need to convert that into t is equal to 5 here at the end. I need to jump to this spot. So can I jump directly? No, I cannot jump directly because the interest rate is uniform. So what I do? First I jump to t is equal to 2 because the rate is 7 till 2, then to 3, then to 4, then to 5. Here also I use all the 4 factors. First f by p comma 7 comma 2, then f by p comma 9 comma 1, then 10 comma 1, and then 8 comma 1. Substitute the values from the factor tables, you get it as 60,861. Okay, so this is how I convert a cash flow into its net present worth when the interest rate is varying from one time period to another time period. Let us continue to solve the same problem using annual worth comparison method. When I use the annual worth comparison method, it is annual worth, equivalent annual worth. A will be common throughout. So if I want to convert any of the cash flows, say this 10,000 or 3,000 or 6,000 or 11,000 into A, can I use the factor f by a comma, sorry, a by f comma I comma n, a by f comma 8 comma 5? I cannot, because it's not neither 8 uniform. I cannot use 9 because it is not 9 uniform. So how do I do that? I rewrite the cash flow diagram. So 5 years uniform cash flow, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. Just for the time being, let me assume it as A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and I know that they are all equal and I call them as A. And I know that the present worth of these cash flows is 41,048, which I have already calculated. For the time being, let me treat them as single or individual payments and try to convert each one of these into its P. As instead of converting A into P, what do? I consider A1 as single payment, A2 as single payment, A3 as single, A4 as single, and A5 as single payment, and I know that they are equal to A. But for the time being, I will consider them as single payments, because if I consider it as A, I cannot use a common rate of interest. Since it is varying, I will treat them as individual payments. Okay, and the rate of interest is varying at 7, 9, 10 and 8. Let me convert each one of them now. First A1, first let me take the convert this A1 into its P. How do I convert? It is at t is equal to 1, 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. What is the rate of interest? 7%. So I use the factor P by F comma 7 comma 1. So here I have considered it as F because it is a single payment now. It is not A. For the time being, I have assumed it to be a single payment. If it is single payment, it can't be A. So what it has to be? It has to be F. So I have assumed it to be F and converted this F into P using the factor P by F comma 7 for 1 year. So A1's conversion is done. Let us come to A2. Where is it? At t is equal to 2. Can I convert that into t is equal to 0 straight away? Yes, I can do. Because interest rate is uniform from 0 to 2. For the time being, you assume that there are no other cash flows. There is only one cash flow, A2. So it's a single payment cash flow. So the cash flow diagram appears to be something like this. See here, it is 0, 1, 2 and A2 is here, that's all. There are no other cash flows. If that were the case, what do? We treat this A2 as F, no, for 2 years and convert that into t is equal to 0. Which factor do we use? We use the factor P by F comma 7 comma 2. Just consider it like that. Okay, and use the factor a by p by f comma a comma 7 comma 2 and convert that. Now let me come to a3. a2 is over, put a tick mark, come to a3. Where is this a3? It is at the end of third year. Treat this as single payment. See here, this is a3. Just assume you have only a3. How does it appear? It appears a single flow. If this were the case, what you would have done? You would have considered it as f and convert that into a. But can you convert that into convert that into p? Can you convert that into p straight away? You cannot, because between 2 to 3 interest rate is 9. So you have to use the factor p by f comma 9 comma 1 and then p by f comma 7 comma 2. So a3 gets converted. Use the same methodology for a4 and a5 also. Right, p by f comma 10 comma 1, p by f comma 9 comma 1, p by f comma 7 comma 2, and a5, all the 4 factors for interest rates will come into picture. Substitute the values. I know that a1 is equal to a2 is equal to a3 is equal to a4. I will consider it as a and write the factor values. Substitute the factor values from the factor tables, and I know that PW is equal to 41,048. Then when I sum up all the factor values, I get it as 41,048 should be equal to A into 4.012. Can't I calculate A now? A is equal to 41,048 divided by that, and I obtain it as 10,231. This is how I need to convert A into P. Straight away I cannot convert because the rates of interest is varying from 0 to 5. Individually I have to consider, for the timing I have to assume each one of A as individual payment or single payment, and then go on converting one by one. Since a1 is equal to a2 is equal to a3 is equal to a4 is equal to a5 as a, consider it as a, take a common factor, sum up all the factor values, and then get the and equate it to present worth, which I already know, which I have already calculated in my previous slide, and then get the value of a. This is the methodology I follow whenever I come across a varying interest rate and I need to follow the annual worth comparison of alternatives method. Thank you. Till now we have discussed the 4 modules. We will again meet in the 5th module. Thanks.